Business is hard, and that's one of the things that's driving Joe's question today. He writes, I'm 7 months in. I thought I'd have this figured out by now. I'm not achieving what I thought I would achieve. Instead, I'm working harder than ever, and the results aren't there. Is this normal? And frankly, Joe, yes, welcome to the Muddy Mile. And in fact, for you, welcome to Fix My Business, the show that will help you fix your business. I'm your host, Scott Todd, and this show is dedicated to helping you build a business that you love. I've built multiple seven-figure businesses after leaving corporate America in that VP role that I had, and I just want to help you do the exact same thing. Now, look, I've talked about this before. Episode 67, we talked about this wall that exists around like the 9 to 10 month wall. And Joe, you're right there at it. You're at 7 months. You're a little early. But the wall is real. Okay. Like this whole thing is when really the grind comes in, because the newness of starting, the feeling like I've got this, and the initial successes, they kind of like grind to a halt. And then it's like you're trying to churn it out. Because you see, a lot of people think that the hardest part is actually starting. But in fact, the hardest part is not starting. The hardest part is sustaining. And the reason that it feels so hard, and I just kind of talked about it, is that that initial excitement is gone. But you have to remember that the effort isn't necessarily directly happening today. There's a lag. Okay, so the activities that you're doing today, you might feel like, I'm not seeing the results. I don't feel the results. Well, the results aren't immediate. And in fact, they might take a very, very long time to come through. But if you stop only to try to restart, then you're restarting back from the get-go. You cannot stop at this point. You have to keep grinding through. And as much as I love to talk about like, oh my gosh, man, don't fall for the grind culture, I think there's a difference between like, you got to grind it out for 90 hours a week for 50 years. No, I don't agree with that. Okay. I do think that in the beginning, what happens is we believe that we're going to be further along. We've told ourselves some story, and then we're not getting there. And then we're feeling like we're not winning. We feel like we're failing. And then we start to doubt ourselves. And when we start to doubt ourselves, all of a sudden, this entire dream, this entire vision really becomes something that we even second guess. Like, I guess this isn't for me, or I guess I'm just never going to achieve my goal. See, these are the things that happen when we start to kind of not be where we think we should be. Dan Sullivan wrote a book called The Gap in the Gain. And in the book, The Gap in the Gain, he basically says that what happens is when we're looking at this goal, when we're looking at some goal that we've had and we're not getting to the goal, well, then we fall into this gap mindset, this mindset that, man, I'm not achieving what I thought I would achieve. I'm not good at this. The self-doubt comes in. But if we just look back, that's the gain. And we measure how far we've gained, how much we've gained from where we started from back. That's a completely different conversation. It's a completely different conversation in our heads. Okay, so you got to look for those wins. You got to look for the things that you now have. Okay, it's not about what you wanted or what you thought you would have by now. It's about how far you've already come. And what you got to make sure that you're doing is you got to make sure that that future is bigger than the present today. You got to understand the why. Why am I doing this? And you see, that is the lie that a lot of kind of the startup opportunists love to share is, oh my gosh, you're going to crush this right from the get-go. Well, you're not. Okay, the people that are out there hyping you and to get going and to start your business and to kind of like profit from that piece, guess what? They're not going to tell you what this muddy mile is looking like. And that's where you are. You're in the muddy mile. That's what I call it. The muddy mile is my term. Because when you're in here, you're feeling like, man, I'm never going to get out of this mess. It feels like you're in a quicksand. But the way that you get out of it is you keep going. And then what happens is you multiply your time with people. And when you do that, all of a sudden you start to gain a little bit of traction. It gets a little bit better and a little bit better. And every day it gets a little bit better. So, where you're feeling like you should be further along, well, you shouldn't be. You're right where you need to be. We're all right where we need to be. And look, there's some physics behind this too, because momentum takes time to build. Think about this for a second. If you've ever watched a rocket take off, the rocket starts off very, very slow. Okay. The liftoff is extremely slow. But as it goes in higher up into the sky, it starts to move faster. Think about that one for a minute. Or a plane. You've been on a plane. I mean, not too many people I know have been on a rocket that they could experience it. You can see it. But the plane, the same thing happens, man. The same thing. The plane starts to roll and it starts to gain speed. It starts to lift off. And when it starts to lift off, it's even at a slower speed, but it starts to gain speed as it goes through the sky. So you got to think about this momentum that you're building. Do not stop the momentum. Do not stop pushing the boulder up the hill. Okay. It's going to take a while. And really the prescription here is that you begin to lower your expectations on the time horizon. And really what I want you to do is I want you to really think about, hey, what can I do today that keeps me moving towards that goal, whatever it is? And you might feel like you're moving backward, but you're not. You're stacking. You're building the foundation. Okay, you're building the foundation. And you got to give yourself grace because this is hard. This is why only 6% of the population own businesses. And this is why most people never achieve their dreams, because they get to this point and they just want to tap out because, well, you haven't reached what you thought you would reach yet. Who cares? Keep moving. One last thing. There was many years ago, my son was playing lacrosse, and there was this dad during my son's first year playing lacrosse. There was this dad, and he would, he was a great guy. He stood on the sidelines, and like the very first game that they played in, clearly his child had played before, mine had not. And what happened was my son's team had the ball. Okay. Like this was a dad on my son's team. The team had the ball. My son's team had the ball. And as they were approaching the opponent's goal, they somewhat froze. Okay. Like they got into a position where they were just standing still looking for, like, what do I do with this? Do I throw it to pass it to somebody else? Do I try to score the goal? Like they would just freeze. They stood still. And when the dad saw that they were standing still, he let out this massive, deep voice. And he would say, "Move your feet." And they would start running. Now, he wasn't the coach. He was just a dad. But he was routinely on the sidelines yelling, "Move your feet." And I was like, you know what? That is a beautiful image of thinking about all the things that we have as business owners. Is how many times do we just want to freeze like those boys did on the lacrosse field? But the answer is not to freeze. The answer is to move your feet. Keep going. You will come out the other side of this muddy mile, and you will achieve the goals that you want. I appreciate the question. And if you have a business question, head over to scotttodd.net/ask, and I will see you in our next episode.